In this tutorial, we're going to go ahead and talk about how to start to model a house. I picked a house that's medium level in difficulty because I want you guys to see how actually easy it is to model a house, and how there's a lot of very similar attributes within a house and things that you would model. So for example, like you'd only model out one of these windows and you'd rotate it and it duplicates there. You really only need to model out one of these towers, because this tower is almost exactly the same of it as this one, only it's shorter. So and also a house or a building is really just made up of very basic primitives. So for example, all these pillars are the same, they're just basic cylinders. This is a simple arc, and these doors are just boxes. And you also want to look for things that have character or interest. You never really want to model anything that looks pristine or clean. That it's just not believable. And walking past this house in a video game is much more interesting than walking past like a like a perfect home or like perfectly clean house. So let's go ahead and start looking at things. So the very first thing I want to do when I'm breaking this down is I look for the very basic shape. So I see a box here and I see two cylinders here. So let's go ahead and jump into Maya and let's just create that box. So I'm just gonna do something like this. And make sure to watch those tutorials if you haven't yet on modeling a table. It's going to make this process a lot easier. I'm hitting 5 to go into shaded mode. I'm going to go to create, polygon primitives, create a cylinder, and then just drag it out on these sides here. Okay. And I'm going to go into my polycylinder 1 here, and I'm just going to knock down the subdivisions to 10. I'm going to jump back to my reference and take a look at it, which is here. And you can see I have one cylinder here, and then I have another one here. And we're going to kind of fudge the back of it, so we can have a lot of fun with the back by building a porch or adding another door to the side of the house. But for now, we're just going to focus on this front. So I'm going to select this guy, hit W for my move tool, and just hit Control D and move that over. Something like that. I'm going to right click, select this guy, right click, go to vertex mode, and just select this top vert and pull it up. Left click, select this guy, go to vertex mode, and just pull this up a little bit like that. And again, I'm just sort of I'm eyeballing my reference here. Okay, looks pretty good. Now to give this a little bit more of a rounded shape, I'm going to right click and go to object mode, go to edit mesh, and just grab my cut face tool. And if I hold shift, and you can see that I can snap to a straight cut. So let's do that on the next guy. So here I am. If I hit G, I can redo. So now I'm selecting my cut face tool by hitting the G key. And I hold shift down, and I left click, and you can see that it created a straight line for me. Okay, so let's right click and go to edge mode. And if I double click on one edge here, you can see it selects all of the edges going all the way around. So I'm going to go ahead and hit R, scale that up, and I'm just giving myself a nice little arc there. I'm right clicking on this guy, go into edge mode, scale this up a little bit. Looks pretty good. Let's move these guys out just a little bit. Okay, so we have our two towers. So let's jump back into our reference, and we're just looking for really basic shapes. So you can see here we have a box. This is just a simple box, and the front of our box is inset in, and it's shrunk. So let's do that. So I'm going to go to create, polygon primitives, cube. Just drag out a box here. And again, normally you want to use exact measurements, but at this stage, we're just really just learning to see the primitives. I'm not too concerned with measuring up. We're really just training our eyes. So I'll select that front face. I'm going to hit R and scale that in. Right click, go to object mode, and just scale that down a little bit. And we'll double check the size really quick. And yep, it fits slightly in there like that. That looks pretty good. Alright, scale it up just a little bit more. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, you can see that I have the top of the porch here, and that the actual base of the stairway matches that. So let's just select that, hit Control D, and let's pull that down. So something like this. Alright, and we'll cut in those steps in a second that sort of fit into where where this guy is. Okay, the next thing I'm going to focus on, let's zoom in and sort of pan down, is we're going to make these little pillars here. Okay, now it looks like there's just a box here that's inset down, and that a cylinder fits right into that. Now the cylinder is kind of bulging out, and now you want to look at different types of like there's different types of columns like ionic and all the other ones, and so you want to have that reference ready when you're in the final polishing stage. But for now you can just really just eyeball this. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a cylinder and two boxes that represent those guys. So I'm going to go to create, polygon primitives, cylinder, pull that up. Again, I'm going to lower this to about 8 sides. I'm going to move that into place roughly where I want it to be. I'm going to hit R and scale that down, pull that up, and I'm going to go to create, polygon primitives. I'm going to create a cube. And again, I'm just going to place that here. Hit R to scale that up. I'm going to right click, go to vertex mode, pull these guys up. Now let's jump back to our reference. Okay, they look about that high, and again, we'll create all of these interesting things, and we'll have a whole nother tutorial just on creating fine details. Alright, I want another box up top, so I'll go to object mode, Control D, just bring that up a little bit, so something like this. So I'm holding shift to select all three of these guys, and I'm going to hit control, I'm going to go to edit, duplicate special. I want to turn on instance and hit apply. Now I'm going to close that. Now the reason I did that is because of this. We only want to detail one of these guys. And when you select instance, what happens is, for example, when we look at our reference, you can see that the base is smaller than the top, so it actually angles in. So now that this is instance, if I go to vertex mode and I select these two bottom pieces, it'll update on my other one. But something I want you to notice when I use instance, it doesn't work on scaling or moving. It only works when you edit a vertice. So as you're doing that, you want to make sure that you go to face mode and that you're scaling the entire piece, so that you're scaling and you're editing the actual geometry. Okay? So let's come back to our reference. You can see that there's actually one here, and there's actually two more. These two hit right at the edge of where our fold is, and then we have two more sitting in the back, right by that back wall. Okay, so I'm going to select these guys again, and hit edit, and do duplicate special. And what you'll notice is it's already checked on instance, so all I have to do is just hit edit, duplicate special out here. I don't have to keep bringing up those options. Move this right at the edge. Okay. And these guys might be a little too big, so let me select each one of these guys, and I'm going to scale them down like that. Yeah, something like this. And actually the face of these two guys need to be really pulled in a lot more. So let's start with this guy. So something like this. Let's delete this base and hit Control D and just pull that down again. It's looking cool. Actually, let's really look at our reference for this one. Looks like it's really pulled in. If we look at ours, it needs to be pulled in a lot more than that. So something like this. Alright, let's delete that. And that's really just a quick change. Alright, let's pull this down here. Alright. And let's get this guy over here. I'm going to select all of these guys and just sort of move them down. There we go. So they're all even. All right, let's move these guys in a little bit. And again, I don't want you guys measuring just yet. I want you to train your eye. So like you're really, the best way to sort of see this is you always check your reference. Are my pillars too thick? Is there enough room for the door? So you're always going to be checking that sort of thing. You know. So for now, let's just get these guys really lined up. I'm going to hit Edit. I'm going to hold Control Shift and just add my duplicate special because it looks like I'm going to be using that a lot. Let's just pull this pillar back here. Alright. Same thing with this guy. Edit, Duplicate Special. Let's just move them back here. And what you'll notice is the order. So if I go to vertex here and I select this guy, the order of how I'm duplicating these guys don't really matter as long as I'm duplicating one off the other. So now I have my pillars in place, and all I really need to do now is I can hold Shift and right click and add that Insert Edge Loop tool, and I can scale that down if I want to. You know, I can hit 4, go to right click. Let's just make sure I only have one guy selected here. Right click and go to vertex mode. I can select this guy and scale it in. So something like that. So you can see now I can update all of these guys in real time. Alright. Alright, we're going to go ahead and make, let's just work our way straight up. So we got our pillars in place. Let's go ahead and make this railing. And so obviously there's a place to sit, so but what we can do is we can just hit Control D here, move this up, and scale this really thin to kind of make our railing. Let's pull that down just a little bit. Okay. And what I'm actually going to do is go to face mode here and just hit extrude. And just scale these in. Now what you'll notice is like you'll see me clicking around. So I actually undid that. So you can see that my extrude isn't there anymore. But when I shift selected both of these faces and I hit Edit Mesh Extrude, you'll notice that my pivot is back here. If I want my pivot to be in the center of my face, I click this little guy here. And then what I clicked is my scale tool here, and that allowed me to scale that in. And you can see it's going to update on the bottom. Now what I'm going to do is just go ahead and delete those faces. And then what happens though is now I have a hole on the inside of that face. So what I want to do is right click and go to Edge Mode, select these two edges, and use a new tool called Bridge. Edit Mesh Bridge. Or I'm sorry, Mesh Bridge. Where is my, there it is, Bridge. And we're actually going to use this twice. And what this will allow us to do is just take two edges, any two edges we select, and just collapse it and make a face. The thing is, what you'll notice is after we open the options, there's actually 5 divisions. If I hit apply, it's adding 5 cuts, and we don't want that. We really need it to add 0 divisions, so that when we hit apply, it just makes one solid face. Okay. The redo tool again is G. So if I select these two edges and I hit the G key, it makes a face. G. Right, and there's our railing. Okay. So now we have our railing, and we're really just chugging along here. Let's jump back to our reference and take a look. We can create these little guys in here. And the technique that we're using is actually called modular modeling. And what modular modeling is what we're doing with these pillars. You really just create one pillar and you duplicate it everywhere. And you look for modular pieces. So for example, we can model in just this crest here, and because it's located so many other places, we can just duplicate it and place it. Okay, so let's look at this little guy right here. And let's look at a way to sort of create that. So what we're going to do is, actually, I'm going to rotate my guy. Actually, let's group it. And that'll allow me to rotate it all at once. Let's do -90. There we go. So now I know it's in my front view. So always make sure you're modeling in the right view. So there's my front. Here's my perspective. Okay, so in the front view, what we're going to do again is, you can see that it pitches in, it goes down, it curves out. We're actually going to use a curve to create this geometric object here instead of modeling it out of Geo. Okay? And so if we go to create, and we select our CV curve tool here, what we can actually do is, by looking at our reference, you can see that it curves in, there's a little ball here, and then it curves out again. So we're going to sort of emulate that. So with my CV curve tool selected, I'm just going to click in the front view, and I'm left clicking, and then when I click my third option, hold on, let's do this again. I'm sorry, what we want to do is our EP curve tool. Sorry, I selected the wrong one. And what it'll do is it'll create a nice little curve for us. You see that? Okay, let's click out here, down here again, and then down in the middle, and then one more out to the side. Let me go ahead and hit enter. And if I right click on it, I can go to control vertex and actually move these guys around until I get the shape that I want. So a little something like this. Now we have this curve, so let's go back to object mode. And what we want to do is actually create a shape out of this curve. So the next thing we want to do is switch it from polygons to surfaces, and then we're going to go to surfaces, loft, and surfaces, revolve. And you can see that it really did this huge revolve, which is what we don't want. So what you're going to have to do is actually move. So I'm going to hit Control Z. You have to move your pivot point by your curve, so in the center of where you want your curve to be. So let's go to Modify, and let's just click Center Pivot so that it centers it to our curve. And then what we're going to do is hit Alt, or insert, the insert key in our keyboard, and just move that until, move our pivot. Let's try that again. There we go. You got to click on the axis. So it's just past the outside of our curve. So now when we hit surfaces under the surfaces panel, surfaces revolve, you can see that it used that as its main pivot. But don't worry too much about it, because under the revolve options, if we go to pivot X, you can see we can sort of move that out. Alright, so let's get that a little bit more. Okay. So that's a nice and quick way to sort of create that little ball structure. And if you go to Control Vertex again, what you can actually do is move all of these guys up or down. So if you say you don't necessarily like that and you want it to be a little more ball shaped, there you go, you can do something like this. Move these guys in as well. Alright, we're going to hang on to this shape, and what we're going to do is duplicate it and convert that to an edible poly. Let's go ahead and hit Control D. And so we have one duplicated. Let's use our center pivot, and since we're going to be using it a lot, I'm going to hold Control and Shift and add my center pivot here. Okay. And what you can also do is, if you under different, you can go down to create, or I'm sorry, you can go up to create, and you can see here that there's all these other options for creating these various other like tools, like creating the NURBS primitives and the polygons. What we want to do is we want to go to Modify, and we want to convert this from NURBS to poly. So let's open this up. So we do want is we want to keep this in quads. And so if we hit Apply, what happens is we get a high resolution polygon mesh, and that's what we want. But we don't want it to be this high in detail. So some of the tricks you can do are, we can go to quads, obviously, and you can see here that we have minimal edge length, 3D delta, chord height ratio, all this other great stuff. Sorry, let's bring this up again. There you go, NURBS to polys. We also have NURBS to subdivisions, which is really great. So we can actually lower the number of faces. So we can actually select 100 and hit apply. You can see we get a low resolution version of that. And it's actually a geometric object that we can convert. We can also select the number of vertices we want. But for now we want to, let's go back. Let's convert it one more time. Modify, convert to subdivisions. And let's make it 200 polys. So we still have that shape. And then we can go to modify, convert subdivisions or subdivisions to polygons. And now we have a lower resolution polygon model. And this is sort of what we want. Alright? This is, I mean, it's definitely what we want. So let's go ahead and use this guy. We're going to scale him up just a little bit. And let's place him. So I'm going to go to perspective mode. Let's move him forward. Let's place him here. A little bit lower. And let's move him inside the surface there. And again, we're just scaling him down and up so that he fits in here. So something like this. And let's take a look at our reference. So he's really thin and he's bigger at the bottom. So I'm going to scale him down a lot more, and then I'm going to duplicate instance out a bunch of these guys. So let's scale them up a lot more, and then let's just make them a little longer. So something like this. I'm going to right click and go to vertex mode. I'm just going to grab these verts in here. Let's grab all these guys. And I'm going to scale that in. Let's pull these guys down. So I'm just editing this overall shape. Okay. And again, remember, we're just trying to match this little shape, and we can always go back and tweak it even more. We're just trying to get objects that sort of represent what we're looking for. Alright, so with that, I'm going to go to edit. Or actually, we have our duplicate special in our taskbar. And so you can check that and see, okay, yep, it looks like that updates as well. So if I hit G, it can redo last action. Alright, and let me just check my concept. So I have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these guys between two box supports. So let's move these to the front. And I'm just going to select all of these guys, move them over just a little bit. Hit G again, so I duplicate all 4. So there they are. Let's create those box supports by just making a polygon cube. And let's move that up. And make it a bit thinner. And move that into place. Alright, Control D, let's duplicate that guy. Actually, let's delete this guy and make sure that we duplicate special. Because again, we only want to have to edit one of these guys. So even if I edit this guy, you can see it updates the parent object. Alright, I'm going to select all these guys again and duplicate special. Move them over. Let's make sure, let's see, there's another 8, and it looks like they're a bit smaller than the other guy, so we might have to scale them all down. Alright, so the so let's delete these guys, and actually let's just focus on this for now, just creating another pillar piece. Here. And I'm going to grab this edge here, move it out, and move it back. And I'm going to move this as well out to the corner. And actually we might have to go with a whole new object. That's the problem with doing a duplicate special. Let's still delete this guy and let's just hit Control D, and that just does a regular duplicate, and then select this edge mode and just pull it out, something like this, and let's pull it back. And what I'm just trying to do is eyeball this angle to match it, and then I'm going to right click and grab this face and just move it over. Alright, so it looks like we might have to move these in, and again you want to check the relation to other objects. See how these line up? I didn't even bother to check that, so let's move these in here. So let me select these guys, scale them down a bit more, and move them closer together, something like that. And then line this guy up, these guys up with that front pillar. Alright, looks good. So what I'm going to do with this guy is just go to vertex mode, select these top vertices, pull them up. Looks like I got a guy still in there. Alright, let's grab this guy and delete him. And let's pull these guys just a little bit closer together. And let's duplicate one more of these guys, because we only have about, let's say 2, 4, 6, 7, and we need one more in there, because we want to stay true to our concept even though we're doing this kind of this eyeball method. So it's looking pretty cool. And if these guys end up looking too tall, again we can pull this down, grab one of these top parts, go to face mode, double click in, we can just scale the whole guy down. So it's just a matter of that's what's really great about this, having so many duplicated objects, with duplicate specials, that we can update everything in real time. Okay, so this is the end. This is just starting the house, and this is the end of our first video on modeling the exterior of the house. And the next chapter, we're just going floor by floor. We're going to finish this up, and then we're going to knock out these back windows.